we're going to leave Expedition 33 on the back burner for today. For no particular reason, really. Just I've been playing it a lot. I've been hearing the music in my head the whole time, so maybe I better give it a break for a day or two. That's all. I'll be back to it for sure. I'm really loving that game. It's going to be my game of the year, hands down so far. So if there's anything else, if there's any reason it doesn't become game of the year for me at the end of the year, that'll just mean that something even more fucking mind-blowing came out. I think that's pretty optimistic. We'll see. Could be. So we'll do a seed randomizer. I think this is a newly generated one already. As far as the settings go, I think it's pretty much all normal stuff. Triforce Hunt 60. I feel like that's probably good. Otherwise, yeah. No Master Quest dungeons or anything like that. Just because that actually wildly changes how you do those dungeons. Is a matter of getting the most checks as quickly as possible. So we're not going to do that just yet because I haven't done it enough to know how to shift what you would do, I guess you could say. So yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, give me a minute here. We'll get set up. Because I also want to like see some of the I was like reading last night, overnight, on the Twitter about the stuff going on with LA. So I wanted to actually so I read a bunch of stuff about it, but I wanted to actually like watch some commentary about it and do that, and we'll run the seed at the same time. So yeah, otherwise normal stuff, just 60 out of 100, normal things that we usually do. No, nothing super crazy. Freestanding items, yes. Songs and tokens anywhere, etc. 7 count on the shops, balanced overworld fish, scrubs, beehives, cows, pots, crates, merchants, boss souls, fairies, yes, not gossip stone ones though. I actually added that ability myself, or at least gave it some options rather than just on and off. So we don't have to play songs for the gossip stones. Grass and bushes, yes. Dungeon rewards are anywhere, etc., etc. Key rings, yes. Not global key rings though. We're not going to do lock overworld doors. It ends up making things take too long. It's still an interesting thing, and I like doing it, but I've never finished a seed in one sitting that I had that on for. That's all. Otherwise, yeah, it's just normal stuff. Nothing going on there. We're not giving ourselves anything other than the Kokiri sword, Deku shield, and sticks and nuts, and the ocarina, fairy ocarina. Otherwise, just normal stuff. This is already a generated one, so I don't need to run that again. I just wanted to double check the settings to make sure I knew what we had. I've not run this one before. I just generated the seed And I was like, ah, shit, I should probably show that so people know what it is. So we'll do that. And just real quick, we'll take a look at what we got. Regular stuff here. Sword and shield. Oh, we got an extra heart because we have 4 instead of 3. Yeah, it looks like that. Yeah, that was our progression item. Okay. But yeah, I do want to take a look at yeah, the news from the LA thing. So give me just a second here. There we go. We'll listen to Asmon talk about it. This is from his stream. It's the VOD from like not yesterday, but the day before now. But I'm catching up on the on the news on all this. So yeah, we'll see what he has to say about it. And we'll play the scene at the same time. Also, I kind of changed around the graphics packs a little bit, so probably look a little different. Hopefully in a good way. So yeah, we'll see. But let's have a looky at all this and see what's going on with this shit in LA. So remember, this is from day before yesterday now.
I don't think that they really need to do that. I think that what they really need to do is they just need to find out who these people are and then just arrest a huge amount of them and then just do that every day. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yep, now they're getting pushed back.
Hold on.
Yeah, because
change it so I can see
like
it.
This get charged,
there we go.
As soon as they see that like charges are happening, the majority of these people will leave and they won't come back. Like you have to keep in mind that like a lot of the people in California, these are like, I mean, LA is a pretty rich city, right? So,
yeah.
Like, a lot of these people probably have like relatively decent lives, and you know, like maybe some of them don't, some of them do, but most people don't want to. They don't want to ruin their life over some bullshit. So if you tell these people theoretically, right, it's like, hey, if you do this, you're gonna go to jail and you're gonna ruin your life. They're gonna leave.
Yeah, I think so for the most part.
They got some. Well, I mean, there's like, look at them all, right? There's so many of them. Somebody said ABC has a new live. Let me see if I can pull this up here, and we'll find any more links to this too. Yeah, here it is. I'm gonna mute this one, then look at this one.
But we do know that at least 2 people were taken into custody with charges of assault with a deadly weapon on an officer. So those are pretty serious charges, and 2 people again taken into custody. For those, we do know that the officer.
Holy shit! They've arrested 2 people.
A couple of them were injured, but they were treated
2 people.
At the
That's
scene
crazy.
And are now stable. So that's some good news in terms of the conditions of anybody injured here at the scene. And now back on the 101 freeway.
And you can
this
see
is the Los Angeles Street Bridge. Yeah, Jory, the Los Angeles Street Bridge on that Aliso ramp to the, let's see, those are the southbound lanes of the 101 freeway. And this giant crowd has kind of come to a halt right there. I would say that's probably a couple hundred people. And CHP has indeed kind of stalled there for now. CHP, in effect, has succeeded at their goal. They closed both sides of the 101 freeway.
Yeah, of course.
Made this very coordinated approach to pinch off the protesters and get them
send the
back
Marines down to California because of the riots.
That's the goal of CHP at least, and it'll be interesting to see if CHP
I totally
gets them
that.
fully off the
I mean, I don't know if they're doing that or not, but I hope they are.
Los Angeles Street, and then they just stop there, or what further role CHP may have in this entire situation. They may be content with just blocking off the ramp and then sending the rest of their crews home. They have a lot of CHP officers from the CHP Special Response Team that are here at the scene now. Those
what the fuck are these guys doing on the highway in the first place? place. What the hell's the matter with them?
Shut down a
in these
major
SWAT
freeway,
tactics,
thanks. Yeah, exactly.
they have the right here. They have the gas masks and they have the tools to deal
There
with
we
large
go.
crowds.
There
As you
we
can see there,
go.
1, 2,
All
3,
right.
4, 5, 6 people.
Finally.
So there you can see 6 people currently
Finally.
in CHP
Holy
custody.
shit, thank
We
God.
saw people kind of being
Jesus.
from that skirmish line, as some of them got a little too close, got a little too maybe the CHP officers thought they were getting too rowdy, and then those people were immediately taken into custody. CHP will probably have a paddy wagon or another large vehicle to put these folks in for processing, and then taken to jail after that.
There we go.
Yeah, we saw those people being marched down the ramp and likely being taken to the CHP vehicles, which are either under the overpass, protected under there, and they'll load them up and then drive them off the surface of the 101. But some order is being restored here to the freeway, and
Yeah, this is going to be over in probably an hour.
And we will see how this plays out, but there is a lot.
I don't think it ended up being over in an hour, as it turns out.
Is continuing to slowly press this crowd back to the top. Up to
I'm not actually sure though. You get a kind of a warped view looking at posts on social media, you know, so it's hard to say.
To hear from her in some kind of press briefing here in the next little bit. I do, in the meantime, want to read a post from former Vice President Kamala Harris, who many are thinking might be the next governor of the state of California. She posted on social media, quote, "Los Angeles is my home, and like so many Americans, I'm appalled at what we are witnessing on the streets of our city.
Yeah, that's bad.
The National Guard is a dangerous escalation meant to provoke chaos. In addition to the recent ICE raids in Southern California and across our nation, it is part of the Trump administration's cruel, calculated agenda to spread panic and division." The former vice president continuing, this administration's actions are not about public safety. They're about stoking fear of a community demanding dignity and due process. Protest is a powerful tool, essential in the fight for justice.
Oh, so she's blaming it on Trump?
And governor have no demonstrations in defense of our immigrant neighbors have been overwhelmingly peaceful. I continue to support the millions of Americans who are standing up to protect our most fundamental.
Yeah, hold up, just 1 second. Everybody's got a right to peaceful protests. Peaceful protest is pretty explicitly defined as don't break the law. So you can't. The fact that you want to protest does not mean you can break the law. That's probably the better way to put it. Okay? So you can protest as much as you want. We all have that right. But that doesn't mean you get to break the law. Standing around on a freeway is already against the law. At least for U.S. interstates, it definitely is. You're not allowed to be on foot anywhere near the freeway because it's fucking dangerous as hell for literally everybody involved, including yourself, right? Like, it's illegal as shit. So that's already breaking the law, let alone whatever else is going on, right? So just the law is already being broken by these people, so it's no longer a peaceful protest. No, that doesn't mean that they're, fucking killing people or, shit like that, but, like, you're breaking the law. That's where the line in the sand is on that, as far as protest goes. Now, there's probably some people that will way overstep that line, but just to be clear, peaceful protest means you don't break the law. That's it. Otherwise, you can do whatever the fuck you want, pretty much. So, anyway, just in case anybody didn't know that.
Fundamental rights and freedoms.
Blocking traffic and
mention there of being mostly peaceful.
No, it's not. It's against the law.
Unmentioned condemnation of violence, but not a direct condemnation of that violent and.
Oh, and by the way, we've had this conversation several times by now. Get your ass out of the road. You can't do that. Just saying.
Tactics that we have seen from these demonstrators.
And this is the reason why I think people hate Democrats. It's because they're not willing to just openly come out and say, stop blocking the fucking highway and lighting things on fire and doing this bad stuff.
Yeah. You should be able to just say
they're
that.
Talking around it, they're using soft language, and it's obvious the reason why.
Yeah, because they don't want to admit that the people that are on their side are breaking the law.
We believe a federal vehicle was shattered as we were covering this live today by people who were simply throwing things at any vehicle that passed. On the right side of your screen is a confrontation we saw on the surface of the 101. This is the southbound 101.
I did change these chests so they should actually show what's in them now. That was the thing for quite a while, but I did figure out how to change that.
Winds up being arrested here, taken down by an officer who was trying to kick that canister back towards those officers.
Yeah.
So that was one of, I'd say, at least a dozen people from this particular group who has been arrested, taken into custody, and removed from the situation.
Yeah.
And this has
Need
continued.
to be arresting a whole lot more of them.
Up this on-ramp, the CHP slowly marching these people back and away from the 101. They want to regain control of the
get them off the fucking road.
Officers are still in tactical gear down on the surface itself, getting ready for
that's nice.
So they can hopefully open this back up to vehicle traffic, which has been stopped now for at least an hour as we have been on the air here.
That's real nice,
side
actually.
Was open for a time as the southbound side was overtaken, but now both sides have been shut down for some time as the CHP is trying to regain control. All of this is happening as large crowds gather in other portions of downtown, including
I think this is going to be over
outside
in an hour.
the federal building, the Roybal Detention Facility, where detainees have been brought throughout this weekend. And we have seen 3 days of unrest there.
I can't actually tell if he's being sarcastic about that or not. You think it's going to get taken down in an hour? Hell no.
In Air 7, really quick, before we hit the top of the hour, one last check with you on what we're seeing at the federal building there.
Yeah, Jory, we're keeping an eye on the scene at the federal building and the scene on the freeway. The scene at the federal building appears to be pretty static, and it has been since.
I think it sucks that there's no reticle for the boomerang. There used to be, but I don't have that particular patch compiled in.
Local news typically already has pro-cop law and order slant, even if they're saying this is peaceful. To your incredibly audience, you're literally lying. Disrupting someone's day, or even hell, a lot of people's day, is not violence.
Yeah, it is. It's illegal to do.
Well, it is actually. Like, I mean,
yeah, it
so,
is.
Like, the thing is that if
you don't get to do that.
Somebody hostage, you're disrupting their day.
Yep.
You've changed the vocabulary and you've decided to use different language in order to make the behavior sound like it's okay. And people like this reveal themselves to know that they're bad actors by the fact that they're
changing the language. Yeah, if you're changing the language,
simply explain what's happening in very clear English. If you knew and you thought what is being done is actually accurate and good, but you're deliberately misrepresenting it because you know that actually explaining it in the way that it is
would make it sound bad. Yeah,
is wrong.
Yeah, and it sounds bad because it is. So if you tell the truth about it, it would make it sound bad. Yeah, because it is.
Using bad faith. Well, I'm just saying, like, that's the reason why they say things like that.
Yeah. They changed the wording.
Violence involves physical force intended to cause harm. Oh, here we go.
First Amendment right. But people should also exercise that right peacefully. We do not want to play into the administration's hands. We're working with officials. We're organizing resources.
This lady again.
What we're seeing in Los Angeles is chaos that is provoked by the administration. When you raid Home Depot,
didn't she fuck things up when LA was on fire
and when you run
earlier this year?
Through our streets, you cause fear and you cause panic. And deploying federalized troops is a dangerous
What about
escalation.
setting cars on fire?
But we need to be real about this.
Yeah.
This is about another agenda. It's not about public safety. There's clearly no plan, and there is clearly no policy. I want the people of Los Angeles,
like on her part, because that kind of seems to be the case at the moment.
No matter where you were born, the First Amendment right gives you the ability again to protest peacefully. But it does not give you the right to be violent, to create chaos, or to vandalize property. And that will not be tolerated. So
all of those things are true, but you can notice how she's choosing her terms carefully there. You're not legally protected by the First Amendment if you're breaking the law while exercising it at all. So it's not just these couple things that she mentioned, these specific things. I mean, it's good that she called those out, but and those are extreme things, so they should be called out. But the fact of the matter is that you don't get to saying that you're protesting the government does not give you a free pass to break the law. It absolutely does not. You still have to be doing it lawfully. That's what peacefully means. Not only do you have to be doing it lawfully, you have to be doing it in a peaceful manner as well. There's a lot of this that doesn't look like it's one or the other or either of those things. So, just saying, if that's the defense you're going to go on for justifying this behavior, I don't think that you can make that really stick. That's all. I mean, if you want to do it anyway, go ahead and FAFO and see what happens. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it like that. You want to tell the government what they're doing is fucked up? There's a way to do that without breaking the law. That's all I'm saying. But give me a second here. I'll be right back, and we'll go along with the rest of us here. Burb. Oh, and also, like, was the Bill of Rights, the, First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fifth Amendment, etc. This doesn't grant you rights as a citizen. That's not what it does. You already have those rights. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, specifically draw out what the government is not allowed to do to you. So you implicitly already, you have the rights to do pretty much anything besides just break the law. And on top of that, the Bill of Rights goes further and draws lines in the sand and says the government shall not infringe. So it's not that the Bill of Rights gives you rights. The Bill of Rights lays out what rights the government has or not. Which pretty much in the Bill of Rights it says you can't stop the citizens from doing this or that. Right? You're not allowed to just take people's personal effects in, you know, like Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment, etc. You can't stop people from having guns and a well-regulated militia. You can't stop people from speaking their mind about the government, etc. Right? But it does go out the window when you combine speaking your mind about the government while you're committing crimes. No, you're still guilty for those crimes. So, just so we're clear about that.
I call on all Angelenos to continue expressing your right, your anger, your outrage.
Yeah, you can.
But to do it peacefully.
You have to.
I just have to say that all of you were there Friday. Everybody knows what happened Friday. A workplace, several workplaces were targeted and raids took place. Now, in the beginning, the administration...
So this all started because ICE raids happened, and they did it at people's quote-unquote workplaces.
What they found at a workplace or
right.
in a Home Depot parking lot. When this happens,
it shouldn't matter.
It terrifies people. It sends a sense of fear and chaos in our city. And you well remember a few years ago in the last administration that kids were afraid to go to school. Parents were afraid to go to work. This impacts all of our city. You can't terrify the workforce, and then expect for people to get the jobs done. So if you think about...
Isn't that the same for people that are wilding out right now?
His family doesn't know where he is. The detainees have not been allowed to speak to legal counsel. That is a marked departure from what has happened in the past. When you think of a mother that might be working in a household, taking care of children on another side of town, that impacts that family
it's just,
as
yeah,
well
it's
as
just emotional
family.
manipulation.
And so this is something
really
that I think should not be happening in our city. And I join with the governor in appealing to the administration to rescind the order to
Bugs really fucking ghost me.
and
Goddamn.
allow the National Guard to come back under the control of the governor. So with that, we can open it up for questions. Yes.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Mayor, these protests that were demonstrations, I should say, did start out peacefully. You've been here since
Right.
in the morning.
Right.
But then they scattered and people were moved
Right.
around. Where is the LAPD in terms of being here to be able to deal with that and maybe stop them before they get on the freeway?
Sure. Well, I think that basically they were overrun. But what is happening now is that the freeway is cleared. The California Highway Patrol, as you know...
It doesn't look like the freeway's cleared at all.
Moved all of
The fuck's she talking
back. They
about?
still might be there, but they are beginning to be dispersed. But LAPD is on the perimeter, so LAP is actively involved. You know that there were hundreds of protesters on the freeway and thousands of protesters
almost
off the freeway.
clear. Not
so
quite.
there is a joint
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
going with the CHP.
Looks like they got a little ways to go.
And then, frankly, the National Guard. But you also know that the National Guard is deployed to protect federal property. So there is a National Guard troops in Westwood at the federal building and also here downtown.
Yeah, they sent the National Guard out there. Trump did. Not the state of California. They specifically didn't want him to do that, but he did it anyways.
No, my disappointment is I've been talking
This is why
to
LAPD can't do
the
a lot.
federal government
No,
for days.
I don't think
was
it's
hoping to
LAPD's
prevent
fault.
this situation from happening.
It's
I was
not.
trying to
Well, it's the leadership.
encourage
It's who's ever telling them what they can and can't do.
work for
deployed
the
the
government.
National Guard in
Yeah.
Los Angeles,
Yeah,
it would
it's the
create a sense
government's
of
fault.
chaos. It's the last thing
They're
our
just
city
grunts.
needs. Our city is still trying to
Yeah, it's
recover
not the cops'
from the
fault.
wildfires. And you
If
just
they're
think
told they're
about
not
how
supposed to
so
go do
many
this or
people
can't do that, well, that's it.
That's an
People
example
starting
where
new
the administration was helpful. And to go from that situation to where we are now is just really tragic. And I think it's so unfortunate. It's the last thing Los Angeles needs.
When you say you briefed out the phone, you have
We are listening to LA Mayor Karen Bass address her city amidst unrest in Los Angeles. If you're continuing on ABC7 on air, we will switch things over to the NBA Finals Game 2 between
Nobody gives a
Indiana
shit
and
about
Oklahoma City.
that. Come
We'll
on.
continue to cover this, what is going on in Los Angeles, and continue listening to this press conference from Mayor Karen Bass, streaming on ABC7.com and the ABC7 Los Angeles
Places
app.
of business and homes were damaged. Well, of course they were.
Well, I'm worried about everybody. I'm worried about members of law enforcement. I'm worried about the safety
No, you're not.
of the people who are peacefully protesting. I'm worried about the businesses that might get vandalized. I'm worried about the vandalism that took place around the federal building. All of that. We do not need to see our
Well, yeah, just because she's going to have to answer for it, for her shit leadership.
The federal government that should be assisting us.
So, yeah, she probably is worried about it, but not in the way you might expect.
When I see the protesters, I know that so many people are affected by this. Their families are affected by this. People are terrified.
How do you think that vandalism impacts the overall message of the protest?
Well,
Yeah, that's a good question.
Protests need to be peaceful, period. And any time it deteriorates into violence, that is a problem, and it absolutely messes with the overall message.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Even she agrees with
Yeah,
that.
it is. You make everybody look bad when you're breaking the law trying to get your point across. Yeah.
Yeah, even she has to admit it, right? I mean, there's no way you
can
can't admit it.
Asking me that, because we're hearing all of sorts of information. We're hearing that raids could continue. We're hearing that the National Guard is going to be here. So it's uncertain. But that's exactly the problem. Because we don't need in this city to go to sleep tonight and wake up in the morning and find out about people running through Home Depot parking lots being chased by ICE officers, or people going to work, or children at school. So we don't need any of that in our city right now. Our city's trying to heal. Our city is trying to rebuild. Our city does not need to be torn apart with a provocative measure.
Well, yeah, but like, the whole point is to get rid of the illegal people, so that's why ICE is there.
How do people vote for this bitch? This is crazy.
Because it's illegal, and we want them out of here, right? Like,
if people break the law,
that's the point.
Will be subject to arrest, and they will be held accountable. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So peaceful protest
Sure didn't
is
seem
what
that
is
way to
needed.
me.
Peaceful protest is a part of our American.
It didn't look like they were arresting very many people, though.
The U.S. Attorney seems resolute that these raids will continue regardless of what's happened over the
Yeah,
last
they're going to keep happening.
Conversations with him, and even any kind of attempted compromise or somehow lowering the temperature, at least the things cool off locally if they want to continue, or are they just doing it regardless of how everyone else feels?
They
Well, I mean, I
can't
think what we
stop
see
doing
now
it.
is they're doing it regardless of how anyone else
That's what
feels.
they have
My
to do.
conversation
Because
with the
if
US
they
attorney,
stop
though, was
doing
not
it because
focused on
these
that.
people get mad, it creates a reward for these people getting mad.
Yeah, so you can't do that.
It appears that the LAPD is cooperating with ICE in this operation outside the Metropolitan Detention Center. They moved in, there was a peaceful protest. The LAPD moved the people back using flashbang and less lethal munitions.
She's not trying to quell the unpeaceful protests? No, not really.
Sure.
The LAPD is not supposed to be cooperating with ICE.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not sure that LAPD was involved with the flashbangs. But anyway, let me just say
Then who
that what
was?
happened there is that when one branch of law enforcement
Yeah, who
says
was?
they need help, another branch of law enforcement is going to respond and is obligated to respond.
Yeah, they're obligated
And so the
to.
minute
Yeah,
that
she's right.
protest left the federal building, then that's when LAPD were involved. So the cooperation that you're referring to, I believe, is the cooperation around coordinating with ICE in terms of raiding workplaces or arresting people who are
Did we
undocumented.
do this
Because
already?
everybody
I don't
knows
think we
being
did.
in a workplace means that you can't get arrested. It's a safe zone. It's like a Shatrat City in WoW.
Yeah.
I have no exact timeline. I cannot tell you.
Yeah, there's no
That's
PvP
part of the
enabled
problem,
there.
Right? We do not
Home
know.
Depot
Right.
is
I have
sacred
heard
ground.
a variety
It's
of
like the
days
churches
and
in
weeks.
Thailand.
I certainly hope that this is over. The last thing this city needs is civil unrest, and the last thing this city needs is civil unrest that's
I
provoked.
lost my bugs.
I think
gotta
they should
go get
double
some.
down after this.
Fire point blank, foam bullets over bullets into the ground, but in some cases, directly at protesters. Can you speak about what kind of orders they're under in terms of handling peaceful protests?
I can't in terms of the specific orders that are being given by the chief or the other.
I don't see how this protest can be logically defended.
Will you be speaking then?
Well, the only way that it's
I'm going to speak to him in the next few minutes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
So
I'm
what is
leaving
in the
from here
plan?
to meet with him.
Great.
Oh.
What is then the plan for tomorrow? Because let's say presumably this does not end.
Right. Well, you know, I think one thing is that because our city has always had a very
There's no
robust
plan.
immigrant rights
There's no
movement
plan.
and infrastructure and institutions that have
that's
been
the
around
plan.
for several decades,
You're
there is a
talking-
history of having peaceful
Oski.
protests here. Now, you know, like any crowd, if we're talking about after an athletic event, everybody celebrates. There's always a handful of people that tend to be at the end and tend to hang around and might get into mischief and violence. But that's not the people who are putting on the protests. I tell you that to say
they're
that
spray
when those
painting
protests
everywhere.
have been organized,
love the
they've been
juxtaposition.
organized in a proper way.
Yeah, what do you
The
mean?
problem is what happens at the
That
end. and
looks a
that's
lot
when
like that,
it's difficult
actually.
with crowd control.
This is
Whether
amazing.
it is a political protest or whether it is a football
Oh,
game.
wow.
Did you say you talked to Tom Holman?
Yes, I did talk to Tom Holman.
What did he tell you?
Well, he just listened. I mean, the main thing he said was he appreciated that there was a call for no violence. I'm not exactly sure what was expected, but, you know, I was encouraging him not to deploy the National Guard. I knew that the order had been given. The president had signed
that's
the
right.
order to the governor that he was federalizing the National Guard, that 2,000 troops were going to be deployed, but that didn't mean that they would actually be deployed onto our streets.
I think they need
So
more
my
than
conversation
2,000.
with him,
Just that he signed the
was
go-ahead,
trying to
okay.
More than that.
encourage
But,
to prevent the deployment.
they
Obviously, that did not
Immediately did it.
Are you meeting with the police chief and anybody?
20,000 at least.
Right?
the
Maybe, yeah.
police chief, the sheriff, and the governor.
Quickly, Mayor, if you're talking about peaceful protests, we're hearing the noises outside as this crowd is getting closer and presumably more violent as they're coming up through the streets here. I know it's nice to talk about peaceful protests.
That's not peaceful, what was happening. It's not peaceful for people to be on the highways. It's not peaceful for people to throw rocks or bottles. That's not peaceful.
So she said it's not peaceful.
Yeah, good. She should say that because that's
Even she says
facts.
that.
Yeah, good.
From the actions of these
These are the same people arguing against me.
and work being done.
This is the person who's on your side agreeing with me.
Yeah, it's legally defined as not peaceful.
Peaceful at a time where it's
Well, and let me just tell you that I don't think there's any equivocating on nonviolence. And if you are going to entertain violence, if you are going to try to take over a freeway, then you are going to
That's
suffer
fair,
the
right?
consequences of doing that.
Apparently
I don't
not.
think that LAPD, the sheriff, and certainly not myself, are not shying away from statements like that.
Well,
Yeah,
they're
you're
not
just shying
arresting
away from
people, though,
actions
is the
that
thing.
Enforce it.
What the National Guard mission is going to do in LA, whether it be
There's 400
Well,
people
all
there.
what I
You
know
arrest
right
10.
now
You
is
say,
that
wow,
the
look
mission
at
of the
us.
National Guard is to protect federal property and the federal building, which is why you have only seen them there. You have not seen them out in the community or anything like that. And just in terms of, you know, to close, to wrap up, I just have to say that, again, our city has been through a lot since the beginning of the year. And now thinking that there is a
job, by
large
the way.
percentage of our city that
Yeah.
is terrified, that is not going to know if they go to sleep tonight and they go to work or they go to school, will that be the last day they do that? Will that be the last day they see their family?
That's right.
We
They
can't
can-
have
yeah,
this
for
in
sure,
our
guys.
city. Los Angeles is a
Oh,
city
no.
of immigrants, where
Oh, no.
50% of the population is Latino. Percentage of the populations are from Asian countries and from all over the
Well,
world.
I mean, if they're
and
Latino,
we
that
embrace
means that
all
there must
Angelenos.
be
It doesn't
illegal,
matter
right?
where you came
And
from
Asian,
or
I
when
mean,
you
that's
got
in
here.
China.
But the most important thing right
Duh.
now is that our city be peaceful. And so protests and expressing your, fears, your beliefs, is appropriate to do,
if
but
you're
it is
afraid of
just not
getting
appropriate
hit up
for
like
there to be
by a
violence. And I
Lamigro
don't want people
because
to
you're
fall
illegal,
into the chaos that I believe is being
I
created
don't have
by
sympathy
the
for you.
administration completely
I'm sorry.
unnecessarily. Thank you very much.
This is, Donald Trump set that car on fire. I don't
You
know
have
why
been
you would
listening
do
to
that.
Los Angeles
Yeah.
Mayor Karen Bass address the
Yeah.
situation
Why
playing
would
out
Donald
in her
set this
city.
car on fire?
As she has been speaking, we heard our reporter Tim Caputo, who asked some
Jeez.
fantastic questions of the mayor during that. As that was playing out outside of the city hall, and the surrounding downtown area. We have seen some things happening at the bottom of your screen from Air 7. That is a Waymo car now on fire. It looks like a lot of those cars have been targeted by the demonstrators, tagged and destroyed, damaged, and again, that one is now on fire. Never a great situation. I believe all of those fleet are electric vehicles, and we don't want to see.
It's not good when those get set on fire. We learned that a month or two ago when everybody was pissed off at Elon.
Gabe Santos has been watching what has been.
He set a bunch of Teslas on fire.
During the
you don't really.
Press briefing. Gabe, what have you
not
seen?
very good.
Well, Jory, we've seen a very rapid escalation.
I think it's pretty impressive that they managed to blame the fact that all of their citizens are totally fucking schizoing out, setting cars on fire. They're trying to blame that on Donald Trump. You have these people that are setting cars on fire, starting random fires, blocking the highway, and this is because of Donald Trump.
I don't think he told them to do that.
Ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah.
Was anyone going to finish this? Yeah, I mean, how's setting cars on fire peaceful? Well, she said that it's not peaceful, but the reality is that she doesn't if it was me, right? Like, I would be asking Trump to send a National Guard in to help. Because, like, you have so many of these people, your police officers are being overwhelmed. And people's property is getting destroyed. Businesses are being damaged. Like, and like, there's also, like, a lot of, like, secondary effects, right? So, like, it's a domino thing where, because the highway is closed, that means that the surrounding, like, roads are also going to be pretty much gridlocked as well.
Yeah.
And how does that affect
everybody
the
has to go a
businesses
different
that
way.
are in those surrounding areas? Because you guys know in highways, right, if you're not an American, right off of the highway, there's always a bunch of businesses there, right? Because, I mean, obviously, because that way people can turn off and go directly to the business. So those businesses now are being disadvantaged, and people can't even go to those businesses. So they're going to be making less money today, and this is going to hurt their business. That's not even burning, and this is the problem that these people have.
Yeah,
is that
you don't even have to set
there's
anything
no
on fire for that to happen.
Of second order or third order effects of any of their actions. Like, they never think about the consequences of what they're doing beyond the immediate action that they're taking. And I think that's the big issue. The criminality for the protest costs over $1 million. I bet this whole thing probably cost $50 million. All
Probably
things
more
said
than
and
that.
done. This is, and I'm probably totally off, and it's more than that.
Yeah, I would
this
think
probably
so.
cost like $50 million in disruption. And that's so far, too. Like, I'm assuming that it's going to get a lot worse. I mean, just her saying that people are scared, and so they set cars on fire and they break up windows. Like, this is insane. It's an outrageous thing to say. And the fact is that none of these people are ever being held accountable. This is a person who's, like, getting inside of the car. It's crazy. Yeah, hundreds of millions is far from over. Yeah, I mean, definitely. This is like the LA riots in the early 90s. Well, I don't know about that. I have no idea. Yeah, profit loss for all those businesses is probably extremely high. Yeah, and a lot of businesses, like, like they're not operating on, like, huge margins, right? I mean, if you're talking about a gas station, for example, like, this isn't a place where they're just
a couple
balling
percent,
out, right?
maybe.
And so if you have a gas station that's not able to make any money for, like, let's say 3 days, right? Or, like, the money they make goes down
it's gonna
by,
hurt
like,
them.
80%. This is going to massively affect their their business. What are those cars? I'm not even sure.
Oh, we got
their insurance payments are probably through the roof also. Well, they're going to go up, right? And that's another thing too, is that living in an area where something like this happens and a bunch of property is damaged is going to increase the insurance rates everywhere here too.
Oh, fuck
because
yes.
the insurance companies will have to charge
And it's
a higher
already
premium
sky
in order
high
for them to afford
in LA.
to pay for the damages if they happen, because there's a higher probability of damage.
Yeah,
so
just anyway.
It's like, this is the problem that I think a lot of these people have, is that they never really understand the effects of their behavior, and they do things like this. I mean, I don't understand how you can have the mayor of the city, like, literally, like, you're looking at burning cars and then blame that on anybody except for Donald Trump. or sorry, like blame that on Donald Trump, right? I mean, how do you possibly do that? Like, this is a person who's setting a car on fire, and this is supposed to be Donald Trump's fault? Like, what do you mean?
No, he's not the one that sets the car on fire.
They're not going to get any insurance for losses. Just look at the wildfire incident. Insurance pulled out of their obligation.
Yes.
Well, they didn't pull out of their obligation. I could be wrong about this.
Well, at least in that case,
my understanding is that the insurance pulled out because they weren't able to raise the premiums to the rate that they needed the premiums to be at for them to be able to make money. And so because LA didn't do that, or California didn't let them do that, they weren't allowed effectively to operate in that area.
Yeah, that was already a thing.
It was a bureaucratic thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened before the wildfires happened.
Burn the car.
I'm
These
pretty
people
sure.
don't understand they're walking near a potential bomb. Well, yeah, they're stupid. I mean, like it's obvious they're stupid. That's why they're setting cars on fire.
Yes.
Do you think smart people go around and set cars on fire? No, it's just retards that do this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you know, posing for photo ops, everything like that. I mean, I don't know why they don't just like, you know, like just look at all. I mean, because these people are going to post this stuff all over social media.
Ooh.
Just find out whoever is part of this and go arrest them.
That's why we come here.
The insurance companies just got the approval to raise those rates, just an FYI. Just in time. Great.
Well, that's good. I guess.
What do you think it'll take for it all to end? I mean, I would say this, right? I mean, like deploying the National Guard or the military in California and putting like, let's say 20,000 troops here, and then just like chain arresting anybody who does anything that's problematic, it would make this stuff go away in 72 hours, and it would completely go away.
You gotta arrest people and put them in jail
that's
for fucking around.
That's what I would support too. Martial law, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what would make it stop.
It would.
I think also like people have a right to live in a city and in a place in America where they're safe and they're not at risk of like being hurt, having their car burned down or their house destroyed, or you know, that being like just violently assaulted or anything like that. The counter reaction would be legendary. No, it wouldn't, because as soon as people get arrested, everybody thinks there's going to be a big counter reaction because everybody thinks that there's somebody who's willing to martyr themselves. And there will be a handful of people that do that. But whenever people realize that actually if you do this, you get arrested, it's going to immediately stop.
Yeah, most people will knock it off.
Actually don't want to destroy their life over some bullshit. As much as their flags and their signs and their behavior might indicate, the reason why they're doing this is because they think that they're going to be able to get away with it.
Yeah. Minuet.
Yeah, Waymo smoke? I don't even know what Waymo is, honestly. Soon the government will do what they're doing in Poland. Just wait for the green light. Will shine. Well, I don't know what they do in Poland. I have no idea.
I don't either. What does that mean?
Do you have any idea of how the logistics of mass arrest would work? So it's not as simple as you think. Yeah, it'd be really complicated and it'd be really hard to do. For sure. And I think that they'd probably have to take them to like different detainment centers like all over the country.
Well, there wouldn't be enough room otherwise.
I think that's the right way to handle it. Because anything other than that is compromising your law based off of lawless riots. So yeah, I mean that's my. It's
well,
hard.
And you can't encourage that kind
money.
of behavior, so you have to like squash it.
Go for it, yeah, and I think that would be a good use of my money.
Yeah, you can't give people the idea that it's okay to do that shit.
Can house ICE inmates. Who decided that? The government. Just change the distinction, change the delineation. Like, I mean, I don't really see, like, I mean, to me, like, whenever I hear that, oh, well, there's a bureaucratic reason for this, like, that doesn't really mean a lot to me, right?
Yeah, so
like,
what?
Okay,
change the rules
okay, well,
then.
Change the bureaucratic reason.
Yeah.
What's the logic otherwise? Oops, too many people broke the law. I guess we can't use it anymore. Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know what people are thinking.
Bomb shoes. We have explosives.
Want the protesters cause riots and in a return they decide a waiver and say the police have no obligation to protect them? Well, in my opinion, like I think if they're not able to like get this under control, I think that Trump should just like withhold all federal funding. That's what I think he should do. And just like stop everything from California. Just totally shut the state down as much as he can, and do that. And that's what I think should happen. Because, I mean, if they're not going to operate under the United States of America, then why are they receiving federal funds?
True.
Hassan almost got banned for filming a crime. I mean, realistically, Hassan getting on the highway like that should get him banned. It's not even a question. Like, it's very cleanly and plainly stated in terms of service that if you commit a crime and you're breaking the law on stream, you should get banned, right?
Yeah.
It's explicitly against the terms of service. So if he doesn't get suspended for this, it will be because there's a bias. Like, that's just the truth.
Yeah, if he was streaming from the highway, which is already illegal because you're not supposed to be there, then you're breaking the law on stream. That's against the terms of service.
Well, maybe, right? You can't change the bureaucracy that easy, in my humble opinion. I don't think that's true. I think that the people that advocate that you can't change bureaucracy are the ones that are beneficial from bureaucracy not changing.
Of course. They're just trying to discourage you from changing your rules.
A lot easier to do if you want to do them. And most people, try to create a intricate web of complications in order to protect themselves.
Yeah, because they benefit from the status quo.
You see the mayor saying she has it under control? Yeah, she's saying everything's under control while, cars are on fire and people are on the highways and everything like that. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. I don't think everything's under control.
See if there's any more of this here.
Uh-oh. Am I going to get attacked? Yes.
Iron law bureaucracy, it dictates this happening to anything whenever it gets too big.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a problem in itself.
There we go.
How can you commit crime on stream and advocate it for 30k people and not get banned? They're 100% biased if this doesn't happen. Well, they are. And I think it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem that Twitch has.
We'd have to get the hookshot to go
again, if they don't want to do anything about it. What's this supposed to here? Would you want the Jews in World War II in Germany? I'm not even going to engage this ridiculous emotional appeal trying to compare illegal aliens being deported to Jews in Nazi Germany.
Yeah, it's not even the same thing.
It's just so incredibly disrespectful to the people that died in the Holocaust and people that were victims of the Nazis. Like, you're comparing people burning down cars in the middle of the street and destroying businesses and spray painting "fuck Trump" to Nazi Germany. I don't want to even hear that. You see Mike Ben's tweets on who's funding these protests? No, I didn't see that. Is she not a Holocaust denier? No, I mean, I think that honestly, a lot of people don't know how bad the Holocaust actually was. Like, they think that it was just against Jews when it was in fact against huge other groups of people and types of people, like the disabled. As far as I know, I think gypsies and Romanians as well. It was really bad. Yeah, it was a lot of people were in the Holocaust. It was not just Jewish people.
Yeah, true.
How the fuck do you fund a protest of random fucking people? Chatters are so retarded. You want to believe every conspiracy you read? I think it's not out of the question to assume that there's probably some form of top-down push that's causing this to happen. But also, I wouldn't blame that push on it happening entirely, right? Ultimately, it's the people's fault who's doing it.
Yeah. There needs to be personal accountability for the people that are actually doing this shit.
I'm shocked people still think that when they can just go visit 50 camps all over Europe. I think, I don't want to, the Holocaust, it's just, that's something totally different than what we're looking at here right now. So there's not really a reason to. Look at this.
Make it sound hammer nice.
What is this? What is this?
Waymo, you can see it now, an even larger crowd gathered around
Yeah,
this
it's on
Waymo.
fire.
Now they're standing on top of the car. And
Oh
a
my
little bit
God.
earlier, I think I saw someone with a skateboard trying to break into the Waymo. Not sure if
Why?
they're trying to set this one on fire too. But that other Waymo has been on fire,
What's
I'd
a
say at
Waymo?
least for the last 20 minutes,
Yeah,
probably.
It was in the trunk.
It's
and
like
now
an
the car
Uber.
is just completely engulfed, and these folks are just standing. One
But
person with a hammer on the
self-driving, I
windshield.
guess.
They're AI
You see that man on the
cars?
roof
Yeah.
with a skateboard trying
Well, why
to
are they destroying
just
AI
basically break
cars?
anything off this car that they are able to do.
I don't understand.
And I
'Cause
don't know if we can
they're
pull out and
retards?
see
Why
if,
are they doing that?
any officers are in this area.
Would be
But
my
again, the
guess.
situation has devolved into chaos. When we have seen
What
quite
does
a
that
bit
have
of
to
it
do with
this
Donald
weekend
Trump?
play out in Los Angeles, and you start to see the smoke rising in this wide shot. It's a
Oh,
disturbing
nothing.
sight to see a fire burning like this in the midst of a crowd making their way through Los Angeles. Again, we just heard from LA Mayor. There's the explosion that we've been waiting for to see if it would happen. That car has now exploded as it likely is reaching the lithium battery that powers these electric cars. I think typically they're found on the beneath the car along the frame.
Yeah,
of those
you don't want
vehicles. And so once
the
fire
the
reaches
battery
down
catch
there,
on fire. That's really
it
bad.
is very difficult to put these fires out. I think I
destroying
remember
electric
a
cars
crash
instead
on a
of cars
bridge
with internal
recently where
combustion
there was,
engines?
some
Yeah,
kind
of
of
course.
fuel or a vehicle that
It's very hard to put out that kind of fire once it starts, because it's like a chemical fire, so you can't just like use normal shit for it, right? And it's like a chemical reaction. Good luck stopping that. So it's really bad. You don't want those batteries catching on fire. And I'm pretty sure they put out some fairly dangerous like fumes and shit when they burn. Like the smoke from that, you really don't want to breathe that shit in either. Like everything about it's kind of dangerous, right? Yeah, you don't want to be around that sort of thing setting on fire. I mean, it's bad enough for like a normal car, but this is just a little bit worse.
could not be put out, and they encased it and basically just dragged it off of the bridge. But here we have, some knuckleheads trying to continue to damage this car, do whatever they can to get involved.
How
in
stupid
this,
can you be?
Some
What do you think,
knuckleheads,
car on
huh?
fire,
mob
protesters
party
with
as they
signs, or
watch
cops
this
with
car
compression
burn.
grenades?
Yeah, and again, these
You
EV
think the cops
fires,
are the
they're
ones that set all the cars
absolutely
on
no
fire?
joke. Those fumes that are in the air. Again, these
I don't
protesters,
think the
they're
cops
so
set the cars on
close
fire.
for sure.
to that fire. They're breathing in all of the toxic
Definitely.
gases. Again, we talked about carbon monoxide, hydrogen fluoride. Those aren't things that you should be breathing in,
that's
and they're
natural
just
selection to
feet
me.
away from that car that exploded. And it makes you think, is that the plan for the second Waymo? I believe there's three. Were there 3 or 5 Waymos?
Five of them, yep.
5 Waymos.
They're gonna set them all on
it's
fire?
just a terrifying thought to think that they want to light all 5 Waymos on fire. And looking at this crowd, you can
That's a
see a few
Waymo
different
stupid
flags
idea.
within that crowd, and they continue to move. I believe this is Temple Street. Did we say this is Temple Street? I think
this is happening on Los
global warming
Angeles,
set the car on
just
fire,
across
yeah.
the 101.
We need a Waymo National
Once
Guard.
the California Highway Patrol came
Los
in to
Angeles.
clear the 101 freeway,
Such a
the
ridiculous
crowds
thing to
kind of
do.
have scattered all across downtown Los Angeles. This we saw a large group. Oh, there's 2 cars on fire now, so they were able to light a
I
second
can't
car.
believe the police would light that other
And we're
going
going to see this
fire.
play out here on
Yeah.
both ends of this
Why are
string
the police
of 5
lighting all the cars
Waymo
on fire?
cars.
Why would they do
still
this?
burning here.
and this is the group in Chinatown.
Dude,
Now,
this
we have
is
a few
fucked
different
up.
scenes, so this is just one of the scenes. I'm
Why would
curious
Trump
what
do this?
the other scenes look like at this time. If they've calmed down a little bit.
That's
or,
sarcasm.
This is because
By
this
the
is still a
way.
very large crowd. I mean, I've barely seen any improvement in the last few hours. So it looks like these protesters, they are not going anywhere, and it seems like this protest is dragging into the evening hours.
It will continue. It's fair to say the sun will be down long before this crowd breaks apart for the evening.
Yeah,
Can we pan
probably.
around and see if there's still a group at the federal building? I know our
yeah.
vantage point has kind of shifted here. We're on
I
the
didn't see if
west
much
or
happened
south
overnight.
side of. Okay, we do have. This is Temple and Alameda. So this crowd is still gathered. Are they sitting down? Look, I'm not sure. Are they? They are all.
They look like they're sitting down.
Okay, so this is Temple and Alameda. They are here for the long haul. It looks like
it's the
not
fucking
really
Giants
doing anything
knife. Who
to
cares
provoke
about that?
anything from these LAPD officers, but showing they are not planning to go
Christ.
anywhere. This says Aliso, so it's
here's
backed
another
up a
one right
little
here.
bit.
Look
They
at
have
this.
cleared the
God
intersection
damn
of
it.
Temple and Alameda. Oh, this is on the backside. Gotcha. Okay, so this is the top of the hill. Here's the bottom of the hill. This is where the focal point of
I
much
do
of the
have a
unrest has been.
lullaby. I can
And Temple
do
down here.
this.
There's still a small group here, but this is where we saw the large confrontation.
I just want you guys to see this immigrant-run Salvadoran restaurant and let you help sheriff's deputies with tear gas in their eyes.
There was a time when there was a skirmish line. LAPD
This
officers
entire
went through the
this
entrance to the
entire
federal building and pushed people down the hill
dichotomy of like these like it's like the Latino people are like the ones being attacked or whatever. No, this is not true. This is a group of lawless, aggressive, psychotic people that are setting random cars on fire. W restaurant? Yeah, those are illegal immigrants.
Hit the officers either way. They hit the officers.
Those are
Two of them
Americans.
suffering injuries.
So
Both
don't let
drivers
yourself
have been
get
taken into
misled
custody
or
and
lied
likely
to
face
by any of the
several charges in addition to just what the other protesters.
Don't let yourself be manipulated or lied to by any sort of racial manipulation by thinking that this is some sort of race war. It's absolutely not a race war. It's a war of identity, and it's a war of ideology, and it's a war of violence. And this is not this isn't white people versus brown people. This is not Mexicans versus Americans. These are crazy, violent, psychopathic, aggressive criminals versus the rest of the normal people that want to be able to live their life and run a restaurant in America and pursue the American dream. So don't ever think that there's any sort of this is not a racial thing. And you can clearly see that.
No, it's just
yeah, exactly.
bad
Do not
actors
be
versus people that are
manipulated into
not
thinking
bad
this
actors.
is a race war. It is not a race war at all.
No, it's good people against bad people. That's it.
The Waymo just blew up.
Moving into this area now, I just saw another explosion, and it looks like people might be moving out of here.
Hopefully, if they are moving in this area, they have
Yeah,
their
I would get
respirators
the
on,
fuck
because
out of
again,
there,
this is
too.
toxic gas, and there are just way too many people in this area. I remember a little bit earlier we did talk about how many people have been charged with assault of a deadly weapon.
You dumb as
on
fuck? You think this is
officers.
race war?
So many people
that's the
have been
problem.
facing that charge.
Yeah, it's not.
And
Nothing to do with
Yeah,
that.
there's a lot of
actually.
people that
numbers
think
are
that.
just insane, and just seeing the large crowds
Don't let yourself
of
be
people, and they're
manipulated.
still gathered here around the 5 Waymos, even though this one is
The
exploded.
whole thing about it is just
but
people that are not
hoping
supposed to
an
be here.
officer or
It has
someone is
nothing to do with
moving
their
in
race. It
to
has
try
to do
at
with
least
whether
disperse
they're
this crowd, get them away from,
here illegally or
this
not.
Waymo
The fire
that's now
department.
Completely different
putting
thing.
all that black smoke in the air.
I don't know if there's any way we can
Look
see
at
if there
that.
are
That's
officers,
insane.
Kind of
Oh my
gathering,
God.
getting ready to
Yeah.
put this out, because the more that these cars
Like
are
I
allowed
said,
to
you really
burn,
don't want those things
and
catching on fire.
The longer this
It's
goes
bad.
without police intervention, the more dangerous it becomes. That's the closest we can see, I think, is just 2 officers over
So
on
much
the
for
far
climate
side of the
change?
101. It is
I
a
think we're getting
dangerous
a little bit of climate
situation
change
for
right
those
now.
officers to have
Yeah.
to walk into
It would
an
seem
area
that
like
way.
this. Things are volatile, and 2 cars are now burning.
How's this Donald's
Okay,
fault?
we do have Tim Caputo, Eyewitness News reporter, who was in that press conference with LA Mayor Karen Bass, asked some very impressive questions. Before we get to the mayor, Tim, you are now on the ground. Can you tell us where you are and what you see?
Yeah, so we're essentially
Sounds
on Los Angeles Street. The interesting thing is, on this side of the 101, Los Angeles kind of turns and goes to Alameda right at Union Station. A lot of the protests in the past have ended up on this because you're on either side of the 101. What you're looking at here from
Marine
the top
convoys
of,
on the way.
above
Oh boy.
is the cars that are currently
believe they
on
actually
fire.
did
The
send in
police line
Marines
is on the opposite
in
side
addition
of
to the
these car
National
fires
Guard.
at the moment from where
I don't
we're
know what's
standing. Part of the
happened
crowd
since
has
that,
been moved back
though.
in this direction, but you see they're not exactly moving. They've essentially just moved the line back and are standing in place at this point. That thick black smoke obviously going right into the air where we're standing. And the crowd kind of mingling its way down, Tommy, if you want to point down the street towards Union Station as well, kind of working its way on Alameda and Los Angeles as well. They're essentially all in this area. The federal building itself, obviously the focus of these protests and these demonstrations, is on the other side of the 101, but as often happens with these rallies and protests and demonstrations that are in this general vicinity, They get on either side of the 101, and where this is kind of on the near side opposite where the federal building is itself. The crowd itself, by and large, a lot of bystanders taking video, holding up signs, kind of standing, and mostly onlookers. There are
these people have cancer in months.
A number of agitators within that crowd. It doesn't necessarily reflect the whole of
They're
the
hurting
group
everybody's
itself.
health with this toxic
Jory,
smoke
you were
shit.
mentioning
Yeah,
we were
they
just
are
up in the mayor's office a short time ago talking with the mayor about everything that's transpired over the last couple of days as well. Obviously, the mayor concerned about the violence that has erupted, but she is obviously taking the stance of saying that the Trump administration's immigration policies and these ICE raids that have happened in greater Los Angeles is the reason that there has been a kind of
because of the ICE raids. That's why they had to set the car on fire.
Here in Los Angeles, Angelenos taking to the streets for 3 straight days
that makes
now,
sense.
and the crowd seems to be getting bigger as more and more people, some coming from the train station itself, are kind of descending on this area. You know, when we were in Compton
that makes about as much sense as, this movie's so good, I gotta bust cap up in here.
I can tell you from either angle from where we're standing, it would be nearly impossible to get a fire truck in, maybe from over here by Union Station, but obviously this is burning strong with people standing by, and that's why police have backed off a little bit at this point. Obviously, we're keeping a fairly safe distance away from the kind of strongest of the action. You hear the explosions as well from those cars. Obviously, people standing close by there, not necessarily a safe area to be. When we were parked just underneath City Hall by the mayor's office, the crowd rather was kind of moving their way up the street. They're all over this area, as I'm sure you've seen from Air 7, but obviously at this point, this is the main focus. The smoke could be seen from all around as these folks converging around this part of the rally at this point.
Yeah, Tim, now that we have you, I do want to ask you more about what the mayor said. You asked her about the violence and if she's blaming the rioters, the demonstrators who are turning to violence, but she led her press conference directly blaming what has played out and the unrest in our city on what the Trump administration has done, but also saying that if you're causing violence and you're attacking law enforcement, you are to blame as well. So it almost seemed like she was trying to have it both ways.
Yeah. She's speaking out of both sides of her mouth.
So this is it's nuanced and it's
she's
difficult,
afraid
right?
to
I mean, there
condemn
was
it.
an awkward moment
That's
where she's
what's
talking
going
about
on.
we want it to be peaceful, and we could hear flashbangs and fireworks going off outside her office in City Hall, literally outside the windows of the mayor's office. We're hearing these loud bangs as she's saying, "Folks, keep it peaceful." That point is come and gone. That is clear to this point. You see it behind you, obviously. The peaceful part
She's
of it
fucking
is not
delulu.
happening. But here's the interesting
If she thinks
juxtaposition, of course, because the protests and the demonstrations are against
being
those federal
peaceful.
agents, whether it's ICE, the FBI, Homeland Security, anyone federal agents assisting. LAPD, CHP, and the Sheriff's Department are all distancing themselves from the immigration operations that have been happening. But here's the interesting part and what makes it difficult. When there's violence against those federal officers, when there's graffiti on the street, cars on fire in the street, now it's in the hands of LAPD. Now it's in the hands of the Sheriff's Department. They can't sit idly by and let this happen.
Sure seems
this is
like
no
they
longer
are.
setting a car on fire in the middle of the street about preventing an ICE raid from happening at a Home Depot in the Fashion District.
He's right.
So that's the awkward juxtaposition where I think the mayor is kind of playing both sides, but is also being responsive to the fact that while people are upset and they're emotional about what's happening with the federal government, with immigration from the Trump administration and the feds going to businesses and homes in Los Angeles, the LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, the CHP, all the local agencies are towing that fine line where they're saying, we're obviously not part of immigration and anything going on there, but we got to keep the peace on the streets in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so it's tough because their presence alone is sometimes agitating the crowd. The police presence, the flashbangs, the tear gas, those are provoking the crowd to fire back. But it's tough because police are not part of immigration, but now they're part of these protests and these demonstrations.
Another fire?
It's a nuanced issue that is playing out in the streets here in Los Angeles, and I think it's important to note folks are trying to be cognizant of the fact and the emotion that the people out here have, but also realizing setting cars on fire, throwing rocks at police officers, assaulting people on the street is not okay, regardless of what your cause is.
It's a difficult job being mayor. You have a lot of constituencies to tend to. And as she did also say, the mayor said she's for everyone. She wants everyone
is
to...
that who I think it is?
One side or the other side or the other side. She wants everyone to be okay. She doesn't want to see violence, and she wants to see her citizens maintain their safety and comfort living in Los Angeles.
Oh
it looks like from Air 7, Tim, I'm not sure you can even see, but it looks like at least 3 of those Waymos, 3 of the 5 have now been lit on fire. Do you see any police moving anywhere in this area?
Oh
no,
my
I mean,
God.
from our vantage point, like I said, we're a little bit removed, right? We're not trying to get too close to that thick black smoke, but I don't see any police officers on this side of the 101. Of course, we're dipped down a little bit on the road here as it curves down into Alameda. I see a lot of bicycles and folks on the street, and a lot of onlookers on this side, essentially watching it from this angle. I mean, look at this. There's a city bus driving by. I don't think there's any police anywhere close to this. Whether or not the fire department is coming and how quickly they're coming remains to be seen. They might let this burn out, but obviously in the middle of the street here, a raging fire, cars that were set on fire.
It's not the Channel 5 guy? I thought it was because of the mask.
To see, obviously, all
I really thought it was.
Oh.
Tim, this is Niku. So you're out there and you're just like in the thick of it. The smoke
maybe
is
it is,
behind
maybe
you.
it's not. I
What
guess
does
we'll
it
find out in a
smell
couple
like?
of
I'm just
days,
really
right?
curious with
We'll
all
find
the
out.
things in the air. Does it have a distinct smell? What's it like?
You know, it's an interesting question,
you don't
too,
want to
because
know
on
if it has
Friday
a
night,
distinct
especially
smell.
when those tear gas was shot from the feds outside the federal building, that is a very distinct smell. You get it up your nose, it burns all the way through your nostrils and gets into your eyes as well. Some of those pepper spray balls that we felt in Compton as well, those are kind of quick bangs. You kind of get a little bit and then you move on your way. This smells like an open dumpster fire. I mean, for better or worse.
Yeah.
You could smell it when we pulled up and walked up the street. The thick black smoke is kind of emanating. Thankfully, there's not much of a wind at this point, so it's going straight up in the air, but I think it's a true sense of what we're
Probably
feeling
smells
here.
like
That
a stronger,
it's kind of
stronger version of the fucking
this thick black smoke
burnt
kind of billowing above
styrofoam
these
smell we have because of the
everyone frustrated
fucking
at this point. Just a cloud of
wildfires.
uncertainty hovering over all of Los Angeles these last 3 days.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can tell. You're in one spot, kind of separated from everything. I'm
Nice
just curious
song, nice.
at this point whether things are truly escalating in downtown Los Angeles, or just a group that splintered off happened to find 5 cars that they were able to light on fire. And
I
it
think
makes
it's
it
a bit of
look like
both.
it's a lot worse than the situation actually playing out of the ground.
It's
probably
a great
a bit of
point,
both.
Jory, because that's the quintessential question when you have rallies, demonstrations, riots, if you will. I wouldn't go far as to call it that. I know President Trump had tweeted about riots and looting. I don't know that
he
I would
just used the
characterize it
word,
that way.
so
But certainly when you have groups
there's a
like
reason
this,
for that.
from what we've seen, Tommy, pan over here to the left here.
There's no
The vast majority are people taking videos, people waving flags, people walking around, people wanting to be part of the cause, wanting to have their voices heard, and wanting to show the power of numbers and the power
how did
of
this?
force.
Wait, did
Certainly
a police
Friday night when we
officer
were out
set
here,
this car
it
on
was
fire
24,
too?
maybe 30 agitators throwing rocks, covered head to toe, trying to.
God damn
How
it.
did the LAPD do this?
Yeah, they should stop setting the cars on
That's
fire.
another big explosion, huh? The vast majority of the
Oofta.
folks here seem to be those who are walking around, and you have these pockets of people who are intentionally causing some issues. I'm pausing here for a second just to take a see if police are moving up any closer. Obviously, the biggest concern anytime you have a car fire, but especially when you have a car fire surrounded by people standing around, is you have a gas tank full of gasoline, and a fire and explosion here would not be ideal. Some of those explosions, you know, it's interesting. We've gotten used to over the last day and a half to tell the difference between a fireworks like that or flashbang being fired by authorities.
Oh my God!
A
Look at
subtle
all
difference,
this.
and frankly doesn't really make a difference. Obviously, one is sent by authorities and the other is fired by. That's another one that's a firework. But
They
is
sound
there
different
part of the
though, I'll
crowd
bet. Yeah.
intermittent and a small part of the crowd. So it's tough to describe the crowd as a whole as agitators. I wouldn't even say that, even close to that.
Of course
but
not all of
because
them are
it only takes a
agitators.
handful of people to light a car on fire, a handful of people to throw fireworks into a line of police officers,
sure.
a handful of people to vandalize vehicles, to vandalize and graffiti.
Yeah, it's not
walls.
everybody that's
Those
doing that,
get
I'm
the
sure.
attention, and rightfully so. I mean, obviously you have a huge burning
rightfully
fire in the middle of the
so.
street
Obviously,
here.
that's the
But it
problem.
doesn't seem like this is necessarily encompassing
would
the
people
vast majority
peacefully
of the people
protest and
here.
get the
It's just
attention?
everyone gets caught up in the hoopla as they wanted to come out and kind of voice their
Yeah,
have
it's
their
the people
voices heard.
setting cars
no
on
doubt.
fire.
It's a matter of a couple people kind of ruining things for everybody else.
They
What
are.
might have been a peaceful demonstration certainly is no longer that.
Absolutely
as those
not.
cars continue to burn and explode. We've talked about those are Waymos, so they are fully electric.
Oh, okay.
And once the air and the fire reaches those batteries,
Yeah,
it
they
will
blow
go
up.
off
Give me
like
1
that.
second.
It's a very difficult put out.
Yeah.
Tim, okay? You okay? Okay, we'll get back to Tim in just a moment. But again,
Jesus.
looks like at least three. I'm sure those guys are working on trying to set the other 2 on fire as well. And you can see that material just melting and burning and covering the surface and still continuing to burn on the surface of the street.
And we just heard
can't
that
be
Tim
good.
Caputo was moving, so we'll have a different look, different angle from the protest downtown. But where Tim was standing, and we heard those explosions in the background, I think he said it was a combination of the car fire, fireworks, and something else. But
right. Well, we did see those flashbangs going off, so it looks like officers are somewhere, unless that is those are just simple fireworks. But we see those poofs of smoke, and those typically are flashbangs trying to disrupt the crowd. And we do see some movement coming now towards the 101 from the top of our screen. So
That's
that
a
would
good
be
question.
north to south. That would be coming directly from where Tim was standing. I don't know if there's any police activity pushing these folks this way, or perhaps just the smoke. It's getting too hard to breathe. More explosions here from those cars, but we do have a decent-sized crowd watching these cars continue to burn. Otherwise, as Tim said, things do look relatively
He's just
peaceful
right
at
there
this hour.
doing
We
it.
saw the folks at Aliso and Alameda sitting down on the ground. We saw the folks at Temple and Alameda just kind of waiting it out. It's broken down to just a couple dozen people at that location.
Broad
And so
daylight.
things
The whole
seem
works.
pretty. It's hard to say that with 3 cars burning. But things do seem relatively minus these cars that have been set on fire.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that's calm at all. Despite all the things that are not calm, it's pretty calm.
Literally watching your
Sure.
go up in smoke.
Sitting down, and this is just the worst of it. Seeing these 3 Waymo cars on fire, which hopefully someone can get a handle on them very soon. But again, it's really dangerous for any kind of police or the fire department to even move in on a situation like
It's
this.
a private company?
Really
Yeah, it
handle
is.
this
Who's
gently.
paying the private
it's
company?
difficult. It's hard, especially with 3. Are there 3 on
Jesus
fire?
Christ,
It looks
some
like
people.
3 are on fire.
So far.
But there are 5 Waymos in that area. But
Oh,
3
they've
are
still got 2
on
left.
fire.
It's a precarious situation. You want to maintain control and get order back in the city, but if you try and do so too in a certain way, you're going to devolve here into some really bad confrontations.
Yeah,
and so,
we wouldn't want that.
You know,
It's much better
there
to
are
let things
discussions
start on
being had
fire.
right now by law enforcement about how best to handle this situation. Once the demonstrators made their way onto the 101, it took CHP a little bit of time to come up with a plan and how they were able to do that. And here we have the 101 back open again. So same kind of situation here. There's a large group of people. It could
Destroying
turn
your
very
own community?
volatile
How
if you
could
move
Trump
law
do this?
enforcement in there in the wrong way.
I don't know
and
why
turn
Trump
what
would do
is
this
just
at
a
all.
bunch of people having fun watching
Yeah, this
cars
is
burn
fucked up.
into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
So it looks like next to that big, the car fire, we have that wide angle. Is that the one on the other side? Is that a closer look at the car fire?
Yes.
And if so, there's people around there taking pictures, and it's just, they don't even mind all the toxic fumes in the air. But the scene is definitely look like it's less crowded than what it looked like about 30 minutes ago. So at least people are moving away, but still really dangerous, because again, these EV batteries, this can explode at any minute, and just the air. I mean, Tim said it smelled like a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
behind
you
him,
don't.
so-
You really don't want to be around that.
Tommy, his photographer,
The
was,
fumes and shit
back
from
at this location
that shit
last night
burning
with
is
Amy
bad.
Powell dealing with that. They were hit with tear gas, and so he's back at it again. There's another explosion coming out of that car. We thank all of our photojournalists for being there, and our reporters on the ground. This is not easy stuff. It's a very precarious, dangerous situation. We saw one station in town. Their reporter and
That
photographer
poor
were
car.
basically kicked off of scene by demonstrators. It was unsafe for them to be there. They pushed them out of there. That is why we're being very selective with where we put our reporters on the ground today, because we don't want to put them into harm's way. But simply being on the ground, you can see how volatile it is. Tim was just a short ways away from this and had to move their situation because the crowd might have been moving their way. And you, as a reporter, with a camera there, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you can't get out and put yourself in harm's way.
And it could be so tempting, because you really want to show, you want to get the message across and really show these images, these videos of just what it looks like there, but at the same time, you really have to worry about yourself.
Yeah, you gotta watch your own ass.
well-being, and that's also the case for the police officers that are out there too. I'm sure they're caught in that that kind of struggle as well.
Why would they be in harm's way if it was a
Caputo
peaceful
has found a new
protest?
location. Let's see
Because
what
it's
it
not.
is and what is going on. As we
Obviously.
search really for the bulk of this crowd. That's the 101 South that is still shut down. The 101 North.
Nobody
is
would
moving
be in a
freely
harm's
again,
way
and
if
what
it was a
shot
peaceful
from Tim
protest.
Caputo's camera location. Tim, tell us about what you're seeing now.
Well, full disclosure, we didn't actually move locations. We were kind of double parked and had to move the van to let some people out because once we got to this location, what's ended up happening, and no surprise here, Los Angeles Street, cars cannot go down. So they're pulling this kind of U-turn to go back down to Alameda Street here towards Union Station. So we are in the same spot, a pretty safe distance away. I can tell you, you know, there are rowdy elements of this crowd. That's why I'm kind of keeping my head on a swivel as well, because some of the anger pointed at the media, some of the anger obviously pointed at law enforcement, at the mayor's office, whomever they perceive as potentially a person of authority at this point. So we're just kind of watching our backs as well as we watch what's going on ourselves. But you know, as you guys have mentioned too, is this car trying to make a U-turn here, this Range Rover?
Well, it's probably because the fire truck can't get there.
Cars are still burning, and the vast majority of people standing on the sidewalk here and standing even in the street here, mostly just getting video. It does seem like some of the attention has moved away from the burning vehicles as this crowd is now moving back towards the federal building, across the 101, back over to Los Angeles, Aliso, and even Alameda Street. Essentially,
and/or like
the protests we've seen the last
the firefighters like fuck that.
Have been focused. Obviously, this
we're
is
not
where
going to go into fucking
but it eventually kind of bleeds out and filters out into
chaos
the
and crazy people. Why would
streets
do that?
around here, and that's what happened in this area when these cars were set on fire. It does seem, at least where we're standing right now, while it does seem from our angle there are a handful of people standing on the street, the crowd is actually moving farther away across the 101, potentially back towards that federal building. It's tough to tell from here, and frankly, I'm not going to try to get any closer to show you a closer perspective from it, but it does seem like just from the visuals here, as the fireworks continue to go off, the crowd is starting to move away from these burning vehicles. Hopefully, maybe that gives the fire department the opportunity to get in here and try to douse these flames before any gas tank explodes or anything gets worse here. It remains to be seen, because we
if it's a Waymo, it doesn't have a
first
gas tank, you dumb shit.
Vicinity. And understandably so, obviously. With
I don't know. Maybe they're talking about different cars.
Things on fire and fireworks going off. It is not exactly the safest place.
Yeah, Waymos don't have gas tanks. I'm pretty sure.
Fireworks. You are keeping your head on the swivel.
They have batteries, which is just as bad, but it's a different thing.
What is the general feeling of the crowd there? Are they confrontational? Are they saying anything to you?
No point putting the fires out. Those batteries can burn underwater.
They're not necessarily angry at me. They're not necessarily angry at the media. They're angry. They're angry at what's been going on the last couple of days. They're angry at this immigration policy that they protested back in February. Remember back on February 2nd when protesters at the time got onto the 101. That was the kind of initial
thing is
for a lot
that
of these folks. And now that what we've seen
people
over the last
voted
24
for
hours,
this.
I feel like to a degree it's emboldened them. You have the crowd,
That's what,
you have numbers,
that's a big thing that Trump ran on, was the immigration thing. Like, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do.
Is be as loud and be as disruptive as possible, and they are doing
sure,
exactly
I get it.
that.
Some people don't like that, but you guys lost.
The majority of people here just want to be part of the movement. They want to be part of the resistance. That doesn't necessarily mean they want to be part of assaulting officers, of vandalism, of burning cars.
Yeah, but they enable the people that do.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Oftentimes means you get awfully close to it, and I think that's what happened.
By virtue of the fact that you're there, you're enabling the people that do it.
When you drive by on your motorcycle and do some,
even if you're not doing it yourself.
This isn't a resistance. This is a democratic election that you lost.
Kind of a show of force,
yeah, see, he just said it.
And it's still going strong.
Yeah,
it's an election you lost.
As the mayor alluded to, and as we know, there are legitimate demonstrators out there. There are also people who are after a sporting event, just want to watch something burn.
Effectively.
And so there is a distinction between what is happening right now, whether these cars burning are truly, along with the it's not a peaceful demonstration, but whether they're actually out there to make their voices heard, or whether they're just out there to take pictures of themselves in front of a burning car once the crowd is out.
Yeah, it's column A, column B on that one. It's both.
It's an interesting point too, because you mentioned the mayor talking about how she wants it to be peaceful and she doesn't want things to go sideways or anyone to get hurt. I think it's an interesting point because a lot of folks out here have told me this is sad. This is not sad because of what the people are doing. They said it's sad it's come to this. They've reached the boiling point.
It's sad that I have to set the car on fire.
Do something about it. And I think that's what the mayor kind of alluded to as well.
Why are you making me set the car on fire?
Angelenos for this. She's blaming what led up to make Angelenos do this. And I think that's a subtle but important difference of the folks out here as well, and what the mayor was trying to convey, in the sense that the Trump administration's immigration policies, the ICE raids that have been happening in the last couple days here in Los Angeles, brought this city to its breaking point, and that's why Angelenos are doing exactly this. And I think that's the sentiment, by and large, I've only talked to a handful of people kind of on the outskirts
I don't
here.
remember
Say,
if I grabbed
this is
this or
sad.
not. I think I
hate to
did,
see it
but
come to this
I
in the
don't
city,
remember.
but something needs to be done, and this is how they're lashing out.
Poor victims.
Right, we've seen
This is how they're lashing out.
those ice raids
Something
play
has
out.
to be done. I know
Mayor
what to
Karen
do.
Bass alluded to the
Let's
fact
burn
that
down a car.
one of
Let's
them took
burn
place at a
down
Home
public
Depot. We
transit.
saw some in the garment district, and some
Let's destroy
factory
the public-
workers were taken into custody.
Let's waste tax
It
dollars.
is said by the Trump administration that their focus is on the dangerous, the violent, those who have criminal records, who are in this country illegally. But a lot of people in this crowd feel like that is
It's a
not
private company.
the focus
Doesn't
of
matter.
what
They're being
is
paid
actually
by the
happening. And
government.
while some dangerous and violent people are being taken off the streets, there are also upstanding members of
Lake
society
Hylia.
that are being swept up in this as well. And that was not supposed to be what this what has happened. In fact, I heard an
didn't get
affiliate
the hook
in our
shot,
nation's
though.
capital
It's in
this
Lake
weekend
Hylia
who was
somewhere?
a Trump voter who is a U.S. citizen who was swept up by ICE simply because he looked like he might be here illegally. And once they saw his ID, that it was a real ID and he was a citizen, they let him go quickly. But that is what has happened here under some of these.
So
ICE
you're saying
missions.
that people
The
aren't just
stories that
getting
you're
randomly
hearing,
picked
it's
up
just
and deported
insane.
for no
and
reason?
I think Tim really said it best. This, all of.
I feel like that pretty much says it, right? Wow, so they thought that a guy was an illegal alien. They checked his ID and he wasn't, and they let him go? Wow.
Well, that seems like that's what should happen. Yeah.
City,
You
it's,
suspect somebody of being illegal. Turns out they're not.
I forgot
Well,
what-
then you
That's
let them go.
crazy.
But we saw it.
Yeah, that
There's
makes
It's
sense.
just
Jesus.
graffitied, all over the city. We were
what you
seeing
would
graffiti
expect.
And not
Ideally,
nice things
they'd never
either.
get
so
Not
a lot of
detained in the
trash
first place,
downtown
but-
LA.
And Governor Gavin Newsom, who is now at odds with President Trump and the federal government over the federalization of California National Guardsmen and women, keeping active on social media, responding to actor James Woods, who posted a video of 2 police cars on fire with the quote, "If I hear one more leftist shill in mainstream media utter the words peaceful protests, I'll throw up."
True.
To which the governor responded, "This video is from 2020. And so there he is, active, going back and trying to prove his
Great.
point that
You know what's funny about that? I saw that on Twitter, and then somebody else after, like, Gavin Newsom's like, "No, this is from 2020. You're wrong." And then somebody posted, "Oh, the governor just wanted to clarify that this isn't from in 2025 when you let LA start on fire. This is from 2020 when you let LA start on fire." Which I thought was a kind of a funny response, to be honest. So yes, the thing that he was responding to, no, it wasn't from this current thing. It was from 5 years ago. He called it out as such. And then somebody called him out and be like, "Yeah, you've been fucking up for 5 years, apparently." I don't think this is the W you think it is, basically. I thought it was just kind of funny. Because that's the thing that does suck, is that you like see so much shit on social media, and like half of it's completely bullshit, and there's really no way to tell whether it is or not for the most part. So you just kind of have to see if people call it out as such, and, you know, give you some evidence that it either is or isn't. Otherwise, how the fuck are you supposed to know anymore? That's actually probably the worst thing that's happened with, like, I mean, this has been going on for a while. Like, the media just lies when, or doesn't tell the whole truth anyways. But now you got, like, AI that can make convincing looking videos in the first place, even though it's fake, or just people post stuff from, you know, a few years back and pretend that it's going on right now. I see this on Twitter like every day because people are like farming for engagement. They'll, you know, post some scandalous picture of a celebrity or something, and they make it sound like this just happened And it's something that happened like, 3-4 years ago or whatever it is. Like, I saw like literally about 4 of those today. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is from like 3 years ago. You're just throwing that out there to farm clicks because people probably forgot about it, so they think it's going on right now, even though it's already over and done with. So, yeah. If you haven't been around and been paying attention and watched all this shit go down, you'd probably think it's going on right now. When in fact it isn't. That's actually really annoying. Like, accounts that do that should get banned. If they throw this picture out there or video and imply that it's just happening right now, but it isn't, like, they should get banned for that. Because they're just farming engagement. That's all they're doing. Now, if they say, remember back a couple of years ago when this happened, and then post that, it's completely fine. Just don't make it look like it's going on right now. Because it's dishonest. You know what you're doing. Or just like, maybe even more generally, like, I don't know, we need to get some rules on the books for some of this shit a little bit. Like, I'm all for free speech, but not when you're knowingly and purposely trying to deceive people or defraud people. That's not free speech because you're committing a crime at that point, in my opinion. Now, in that case, like, if you're prosecuting them, you'd have to show that they knowingly did this, they knowingly deceived people. Like, it's one thing if you, like, Joe Blow random user repost something you think is going on, and you don't have any reason to believe that it isn't. But so, like, I'm not talking about that. Yeah, that's fine. It's still not ideal. But there's a difference between unknowingly spreading disinformation and knowingly doing it. If you knowingly do it, it's like the intent, right? If you're trying to deceive people on purpose, like by posting stuff on social media, well, you're doing that for personal gain because you're farming engagement, which gets you more money. So you're doing it for you're deceiving people knowingly for a profit incentive. That should definitely be illegal. You shouldn't be able to do that. That's not free speech at that point. Not only are you just trying to deceive people, but you're doing it for, direct personal gain. Like, that's like way over the line, I think. If you just repost something as a Joe Blow because, oh shit, look what's going on, that's completely different than, knowingly try to defraud somebody. There is a difference there. There's some nuance. Anyway.
that the president
So
was
you
wrong
fucked
to
up
bring in the
then,
National
and you're
Guard
fucking up now.
against his wishes.
Great argument.
Which is something that typically we do not see
Yes.
happen. The normal order of things is
Really?
that
So this
the
isn't his
governor
first
of
time
a state
fucking
would
up.
request the federalization, some help from the
Where is
federal
it?
government, and bring in the National Guard. That did not
don't see
happen
it.
here. President Trump took it upon himself to federalize 2,000 members of the National Guard last night, put them into use today. The governor has made a move now
always
to
a track
retake
record.
control of those National Guards members. And again, we talked about the history in our country
He's a
of something
fuck-up
like this
veteran.
happening.
Sure is.
Presidents have federalized National Guards members. The last time I think it's happened was the Civil Rights era, when John F. Kennedy federalized National Guards members in the South to allow black students to attend schools who were
Yep.
being met with resistance by the governor, George Wallace being chief among them, and other local governments that weren't allowing federal law to be executed, and it was directly
WJFK.
harming citizens.
That's right.
This situation
That's right.
is not that.
Right. It's so different, and it's so hard
Really?
to see. Like, okay,
So
usually
this
this
isn't
we
ignoring
kick this
federal
off.
law
Let's
and
look
harming
back, let's see what
citizens?
happened. You can't really do
Oh,
that with this
oh,
because
okay.
this is, again, it's not going in the right order. 2,000 National Guard troops are
Okay,
deployed
I guess
here,
I was
and, yeah,
confused.
President Donald Trump went over Governor Newsom's authority, and he brought them here. So
Now we got
it's
the grapples
really
for the shield
difficult
fix.
to see
Nice.
how this is going to turn out.
Yeah,
we can't predict it.
And we've heard from ICE about their the execution of some of their activity the last couple of days, and
Too
some
bad
of the
the
violent,
icons don't
dangerous
match,
criminals
but,
and
yeah,
people that they
that's
have
what it
taken into custody who now face deportment. Our Tim Caputo, who you've been talking with
Johnson,
there on
not
the ground
JFK.
there, spoke with
W.
U.S. Attorney
Johnson.
Bill Asaley this
Either way.
weekend about some of those movements. Let's hear more. Tim, what did the U.S. Attorney tell you?
We didn't fight the Civil War for
He was
fucking
resolute
nothing.
that these ICE
Like-
operations will continue regardless of this, regardless of what
Yeah,
happened
they
yesterday,
have to.
regardless of what happened on Friday as well. It was an interesting take because we've heard a lot of people talking about how they want us to stop. The U.S. Attorney said absolutely not. This is their job and their duty. They say they were going after criminals. They say they were going after people who have immigration judges
I
in their
see a
final
few criminals
warning
right
to
there.
leave the country. He also said, full disclosure, if we run across somebody who is here illegally, we're going to arrest them too. Now, how much of that
They
is going
should.
after people with those warrants
It's
and how much is the
illegal
other, we don't exactly
anyway.
know. But he said,
Why would it
regardless of
matter?
what is going on, those operations that happened
They're
in
all
Paramount
illegal.
yesterday, he said they carried them out. Despite
Yeah.
that
Yeah, they
entire
don't have to
protest
have a
happening for
warrant
the better part
against
of
them.
12,
If they're
15
illegal,
hours.
they're
And
illegal.
he said they will continue to happen here in Los
GTFO.
Angeles. He was undeterred by everything that's going on. In addition to the National Guard, he says,
I mean,
they've
sorry, I feel pretty
mobilized
strongly about
Border
that. If you're
Patrol
illegal, you don't
to
belong
protect
here.
the federal buildings here downtown. And
Do it the right way.
An obvious mobilization of federal officers and federal agents to protect the work that they are doing and protect the people who are doing that work. I had asked him what he thought about this resistance, about people being frustrated, about people being sad. That's all that's going on. And he essentially said, it is what it is. We're enforcing the law. And he said even more emphatically
U.S.
that if you try to
Marines
resist
on
those
high
officers,
alert.
if you try to impede those officers,
Ready to deploy
if you
in
try
Los
to
Angeles.
assault or actually assault those federal agents, you will
Listen
get
to the
arrested
Marines.
and you will be prosecuted. And we saw that
Yeah,
yesterday.
it's against the
We
law.
saw it to a
Like,
smaller
you
degree
should
on
absolutely
Friday.
expect
And I
that
can
that's gonna
imagine
happen
what we're
to
gonna
you.
see here as well as these protests have continued all
Why
day
is this
today.
guy
You shouldn't have to be told that
Perspective,
either,
from the U.S.
actually.
Attorney as well, because obviously he sees
Get
it
out
from
of
the
the
other
car,
side,
idiot.
is that they are federal agents carrying out these immigration
out, fatty.
this immigration work,
Bro.
and the protection
Yeah,
of
get the
those
fuck out of
officers
there,
and
dummy.
those
What are you
agents who are
doing?
not only
You
carrying out the
moron.
work like yesterday in Paramount, who were mobilizing.
Wait, did Donald
after,
Trump set that
kind of
car on
joining,
fire too?
Where they were all meeting.
It was probably
to start
him.
doing that work, and he
Why
said there
does
was
he
an
keep
assault
setting
on
these
officers,
cars on
and
fire?
They won't stand for that.
Goddamn.
So it's an interesting point of view that we maybe not necessarily have heard as much
Why
over
is
the
he
course of the
doing this?
weekend because of the presence of so many people who are
Oh,
frustrated
strength
and
upgrade,
fed up
that's good.
with these ICE raids.
I'll
He
buy
said,
that.
I wouldn't even call them
Even though
raids.
it's 100
They are
rupees, I'll still
arresting
buy
people who
that.
have warrants out for their arrest. He didn't
Skull
even like
Tula
the
is only
description of
5,
calling it an
okay.
ICE raid. I think the vast majority of this crowd would disagree with that.
Right, and that's why we keep hearing from
I'll
people
buy
like
that
Governor
Triforce
Newsom
piece,
and the
too.
mayor for people begging them to
Just
be.
real quick, we got another one right here.
Even if you don't plan to invoke the Insurrection Act, do you plan to send troops to Los Angeles? What? Even if you're not planning to invoke the Insurrection Act, do you still plan to send troops?
Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden and his auto pen.
What's the bar for sending Marines to
The bar is what I think it is. I mean, if we see danger to our country and to our citizens, will be very, very strong in terms of law and order. It's about law and order. We're going to see what we need. We'll send whatever we need to make sure there's law and order.
Thank God. Do you foresee those protests spreading to other cities, Chicago, New York, for example, in the next few days?
We're going to be watching it very closely. And when they spit at people, you know, they spit. That's their new thing. They spit and worse. You know what they throw at them, right?
Shit.
And when that happens, I have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit. And I told them, nobody's going to spit on our police officers. Nobody's going to spit on our military, which they do is a common thing. They get up to them this far away and then they start spitting in their face. That happens, they get hit very hard.
Good. They should. Because that's assault.
See what happens. If we think there's serious insurrection,
You can't kill him for that, but
we're going to have law and order. Very important.
you can take him down for that.
You have to really just have to look at the site. You have to see what's happening. Last night in Los Angeles, we watched it very closely. There was a lot of violence there. There was a lot of violence, and it could have gotten much worse. And you have an incompetent governor. Just take a look at the train stations that he's building. Like 20 times over budget. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So I did call him the other night. I said, look, you got to take care of this. Otherwise, I'm sending in the troops. That's what we did. Thank you very much. You have a question for Marco? Question for Marco?
California officials could face federal charges if they get in the way of the deportation. Something that only may have suggested.
If they stand in the way of law and order, yeah, they will face charges. Thank you very much.
Thank fucking God.
Miller want the situation.
To be honest, I'm glad he said that.
He's alluding to what I was just talking
He's like,
about.
nope, fuck no.
Who looks bad when you see?
I mean, we'll see what
this,
actually
cars
happens,
on
right?
fire,
But like, that's the
civil
message
unrest
that
all
you
over
should be
Los
sending.
Angeles.
People
Is it
running
the
Just
demonstrations
nope.
doing this that look bad in the eyes of the nation. If you're trying,
If we
from
gotta
a
step
PR
in, we're
perspective,
gonna step
it's
in.
gonna look
People's
bad in a
cars are cop
situation like
cars.
this. It's
And
the
people better not
demonstrators
fuck around, or they will find out.
who are in power
You
as this
have
is
to do
happening
that.
in their city.
Technically
And
a
so as we
private
see this
company,
play
but
out,
they work for
If you
public
don't,
transit.
at least
that
four
just
of those,
encourages
I'm
people to
guessing all
continue
five of those
doing it, or
windows
even
have now
escalate
been
things.
set
So you have
ablaze and
to
are now burning down, literally burning to the ground, melting into
make
the
people
pavement on Los
responsible for
Angeles
their
Street.
actions.
This has been going on, this unrest, since this morning. Really,
If they're breaking
since
the law,
Friday. This is
then
day 3 of unrest.
they need to face the consequences of breaking the law.
To public U.S. land.
That's all. If they're not breaking the law, you can't do shit to them.
People continue rioting and burning down the city.
That's it.
Wishes them to be
Great idea.
referred to as immigration enforcement at a Home Depot.
As it should be.
Some day laborers.
Don't break the law, you're not going to get in trouble.
They're
It's
not
pretty
just
simple,
day
right?
laborers, they are violent criminals. That may be the case. They did put out some
The
of
worst thing
people
that can
they
happen to you
arrested,
is somebody
and,
videotapes you and everybody
not
thinks
all
you're
of
an
them were
asshole, but you're not going to
violent
like,
criminals with
you have to go to court because of it.
criminal records
If you
in
don't
their
break the
past.
law.
Has anyone gotten hurt?
If you do break the law, that's
things began.
everybody's
going
gonna think you're an asshole and you have to go to
outside
court.
another Home Depot. It actually was outside
Double
another
whammy.
Home Depot, but that was not the purpose of this location.
They're
why it was
subsidized
chosen.
taxi vehicles?
Across the street in Paramount, there was a DHS facility where authorities were staging more actions to be taken yesterday.
Anyway, sorry, I got enthralled watching the
demonstration grew
video.
Violent. It was
There.
pushed down the street into
The
Compton,
fucking
where again
cars on
things
fire.
turned violent. A car was lit on fire. Firefighters and law enforcement came under attack from thrown projectiles. And then it continued last night here at the federal building in downtown, the detention center, where people were being held. Back to today, another demonstration began in Boyle Heights, walked their way across the river and the freeway over to downtown, again gathering at the federal complex there. There was a
my
second
mouse pointer's
demonstration
away,
today
sorry.
at 2 p.m. outside City Hall. More than 1,000 people were gathered there. They made their way and joined the group at the bottom of the hill down at Alameda and Temple at the federal building, and that's where the bulk of the confrontation happened today. At some point, with federal troops, those federalized National Guards members on hand, the LAPD was called in to move in and back those people up, and they did that, clearing out Alameda, pushing them into the intersection, and gaining control of that situation. As that was happening, some of the crowd dispersed, made their way around the facility, back to the north side and onto the 101 freeway. That took about an hour at least to clear that situation. California Highway Patrol was brought in because once you're on the freeway, that is now state jurisdiction.
I don't think it's cleared if there's fucking
of the California Highway
Earth
Patrol
cars in the road.
Cleared off that freeway.
I don't know if they've
surface,
gotten that cleared
spreading
yet.
people out once again, and now they have
Things
moved
might
to
have
Los
actually
Angeles
gotten
Street, where
worse.
their
Now
eye
I'm
has been
curious.
focused on
I
a
mean,
fleet
this is
of
from
Waymo cars lighting all
day
5 of
before
them on
yesterday.
fire,
I don't
and
even
that's
know what
about
happened
where
yesterday.
we stand here at the 6 o'clock hour with those cars now melting down to the pavement.
That was a really good way of summing everything up, and that just really just goes to show day by day, demonstration by demonstration, and the longer that the National Guard is in town, protesters, they're just getting angrier and angrier. And I actually saw a picture, Governor Gavin Newsom shared it online. It really just conveys like the tone and the message that the protesters are trying to convey. They're angry. The tensions are just at an all-time high. He said Trump is trying to manufacture a crisis in LA County, deploying troops not for order, but to create chaos. Don't take the bait. Never use
I don't
violence
actually
or
believe that
harm
that's
law
actually going
enforcement.
on.
really
I don't
wish
think
that the
so.
last
I can
part
see
of
why
that,
people would say that,
message.
but I don't actually believe
demonstrators
that's what's
could have
going
at
on.
least,
Maybe I'm wrong.
listened to that
They
a little
don't
bit
But
more.
like I don't
mean,
believe that.
They're angry.
Oh my
Tensions
God.
are at an all-time high, and like Tim said, they're at their
Jesus.
breaking point.
How does this
and
even
we
happen?
Have, we have seen this kind of escalate at times. It ebbs and it flows. It waxes and wanes.
And
we've
by the
seen
way,
dangerous situations,
if
and
I end up being wrong
things
about that,
do seem to be
I'll
calming down.
say
we
so.
can't really find any kind of confrontation point throughout all the different locations right
Well, yeah,
now.
I really don't think
On
so.
either
I
side
get
of the
why
federal
he said
facility,
that, but
we see a line here
I
of
don't think that's what's
officers
going on.
blocking this roadway. But no one really in their face, as we have seen. The cars continue to burn on Los Angeles Street, but there are no skirmish lines as we see. The 101 freeway is back open again, at least northbound. The southbound side has been cleared. I think CHP units remain on the surface.
Well, they did get it
the
back
roadway
open,
has not
at least.
reopened to traffic.
Still?
But things do seem to be calming down. The question
Oh my
is,
God.
Wait a minute,
will they
never mind.
remain that way tonight? Because we did see a kind of relaxing of tension yesterday about this point, and then things picked back up again in the evening.
Oh,
as the
yeah,
sun
you
went
gotta be
down.
Okay, I believe
They're
we
at
also
their
have
breaking
Bruce
point.
Thomas,
The
who's on phone.
implication
He
that
asked
they
a
were
couple
justified
questions,
in
but
reacting this
I'd
way.
love to know
Fake news
Bruce's
yet again to the
take on
rescue.
Just
Yep, that's
looking at
right.
the demonstrations the past few days and comparing it to what we've seen today. Does it look? I mean, just looking at these wide aerial views, it looks like it is starting to calm down, and I'd love to get Bruce's take on that.
Yeah,
I hope it
definitely.
has.
Calm down now. There's kind of a lull in the fight, if you will. However,
What
we
happens
have seen
later
over
on
the
when it
last
gets to be
3
dark?
days is an escalation of the protests, the taking over of the freeway.
And
the
that's
burning
exactly
of the
why I
cars,
said they should have gotten
the
on top of it.
graffitiing of
Yep.
the buildings.
The
They should have
escalations
squashed
never
that
would
shit
have
immediately.
happened. If they
And what you've seen is
if
a
they had
large
clamped down on this on day
response.
one, it would have
Not only
never
just
happened.
LAPD, but the Federal Protective
Yeah,
Police.
he's probably
and
right
also
about that.
mounted enforcement for LAPD, which we have not seen before.
It might have made things worse.
And Bruce, have you seen? So we're zooming
It's
back
hard
into
to
those
say.
Waymo cars. Have you seen something like this before? And
I'm more worried about
what are the
tonight than anything.
consequences
If
of
this goes
seeing
past
these
sunset, they've
EV
got problems.
fires?
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. I saw.
Yeah.
a
I mean,
line
they're just
of
going to
the
deploy
Waymo
probably the
vehicles over
military or the
by
National
Alpera
Guard,
Street,
and that's going to be
and
it.
I was wondering what they were doing, but then I remembered they're driverless, so they're kind of stuck in confusion, and then they became easy targets for some of the agitated protesters to burn and torch.
Right, and we talked to Tim a little bit earlier as well. He said that the protesters, they are
I'm
agitated.
angry they haven't been deployed
and
already.
they have a lot of
Yeah, they should have been
resentment
deployed
toward, I
this
mean,
morning.
it's not just what's
Yeah,
going on
they
right
should
now,
have
but even
squashed
towards the
that
media
shit,
as
like,
well.
immediately.
What do you think? If
Yeah,
you could
it's
put yourself in
embarrassing.
those
That
protesters'
hasn't happened.
shoes, like the minds of them. What do
Yesterday?
you think is
Yeah.
going on right now? And as we head into the evening hours, you think that things are starting to calm down and they're starting to cool off? What's your prediction on that?
You know, like I said, I believe this is a lull in the fight. I think once the sun goes down, you're going to see more protesters come back. You're going to see a takeover of the freeway again, and you're going to see more, we'll call it anarchism, if you will, for lack of a better word. These people are just not happy with the media, with the police, with anything, and everybody's being lumped into one large group.
Right, and right now we are looking at a live view. I believe this is live. I don't think this is video.
I get what he's saying.
This is earlier. Okay, this is video from earlier on the
Ooh,
right, but
great.
on the left, I see it down there. It says earlier. On the left, this is the live view, and it looks like some law enforcement. They're making their way toward an area. I'm not sure which direction they're going to, which street this is exactly, but we're getting a wider view. They're heading down the street and interested to see what their next move is going to be. We panned away from the Waymo. I think that scene is kind of just playing out on its own. The fire's just going to continue to keep running, but it's interesting to see what is the next step right now.
Aggressive bomb bag. I'll take it. Sure.
Yeah, I think law enforcement is regrouping.
I'm not buying a skull tool for
getting
100.
some additional
No fucking
personnel
way.
that are going off shift, and those that are coming on, they're being fully briefed. They're being suited up, as you will, with equipment and resources for the rest of the night.
I'll buy
And you'll
a
see
red rupee
them
for
move
5.
into those areas to relieve some of those day shift personnel.
Hey Bruce, we are seeing what looks like those flashbangs continue to go off.
Flashbangs.
We can't spot where the officers would be. Have you been watching? Are you seeing flashbangs, or are these fireworks being set off by members of the demonstration?
At this point, I believe they're fireworks because I've been looking at some different coverages, and I don't see the officers deploying those less than lethal weaponry. So at this point, I believe it's fireworks. Possibly the same group that torched the Waymo vehicles.
And we're now looking
He's
at the
probably
mounted
right.
officers from the LAPD.
This guy
A
kinda
lot of
sounds
people
like he
at our
knows what he's
station, Bruce,
talking
had
about.
the same reaction once the horses were being moved in to confront some of these demonstrators, just worried about the horses themselves. I'm not sure
disgraceful they let it happen.
the
No, it
experience
is.
you have with these with the mounted. We do see projectiles being thrown at these officers here, and they are firing back less than lethal projectiles. But the training that goes into these mounted officers, the horses, to deal with these situations, we wouldn't
Less
think that
than
they would
lethal
be suited
projectiles.
to go
That's
into a situation
such
like
a
this.
weird way to
As we're
describe rubber
watching this,
bullets.
one person stick their head out of a car, and
there's a group of
Just say that.
Okay, let's see if we can
It's
swing the
so
helicopter
weird
around,
you
'cause
can't
this
just
is the
say
first
what it
kind of
actually
action we've
is.
seen
It's not even
probably
that
about
bad.
an
Like,
hour between people on the ground and officers. So I will get back to that question again.
But even
The
that,
training
they've
of the
got
horses, Bruce, in a little bit as we
quote
watch this
unquote
play out,
politically
but, I
correct
guess we
term
can answer it
for
right
it.
now.
I think
Just the fact that they're
that's
able
fucked
to
up.
handle loud situations like this with protesters in their face.
Yeah, the horses and the mounted officers go over hundreds of hours of training. The horses are accustomed to loud noises, flashbangs, light, basically loud everything. The horses are very well maintained on that. The horses are also
I'm sure the
protected
horses
with
are
their
having a lot of
face,
fun right now.
with a
Yeah, they're
mask
probably
and
not.
Yeah.
plexiglass. And also the mounted officers are
Switch
protected.
tab.
But they're also supported by officers on the ground, too. The mounted units are an awesome tool
That's
to
it.
clear crowds. I've used them.
there's nothing going on.
and Only second to motorcycle officers. They're very, very effective.
Bruce, can you tell us usually when do they make the call to bring the horses in? Like, how bad does the situation have to be?
I was kind of surprised that we didn't see them.
Oh, we
till
got a
just now,
diagnostic for that.
Meaning,
That's good.
maybe an hour ago. They're a great tool to use with law enforcement, and they do clear crowds. People do not want to stand in front of a horse that outweighs them by a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah,
so
I
I was kind of surprised we didn't see them.
Oh,
but
yeah.
now they're being used, and they're being used very effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious. Obviously,
I
I don't
did-
have
I
much
did too.
training.
They brought in the
when it comes
cavalry.
to,
Literally.
just knowing
Yes,
law
they
enforcement
literally
and
brought
when
in the
they use the
cavalry,
horses.
that's
You
right.
explained that really well, how it helps with clearing the crowds. But I'm curious, why haven't they moved further in toward the crowd right now? Now that they are on the horses, if they can clear the crowds.
It seems like they're just trying to maintain an operational area. I'm surprised they haven't been used to clear so that LA City Fire can move in and put these vehicles out. But I think they're very content in just letting them burn, as they do have lithium batteries in them, which presents a whole other problem for the fire department and for the safety of everybody involved. But I can tell you,
And we still don't have
once the
Son of
mounted units
Storms,
are
though.
called, they respond, and they respond very effectively.
As we're watching this play out, Bruce, stand by for a moment. There is reaction coming in from around the country and around the world. There is a post from Ileana Garcia. She is the co-founder of Latinas for Trump, who writes, I want to put myself on the record, Garcia writes, says, this is not what we voted for. I have always supported Donald Trump through thick and thin. However, this is unacceptable and inhumane. I understand the importance of deporting criminal aliens, but what we are witnessing are arbitrary measures to hunt down people who are complying with their immigration hearings, in many cases with credible fear of persecution claims, all driven by a Stephen Miller-like desire to satisfy a self-fabric.
If there are people that are actually like, okay, they're not like they're in some kind of process with it. And so they're trying to be legit, then I think you should leave those people alone and let that play out however it's going to. Like if they get accepted or they get denied or whatever it is. Like if they got like application actually in process, I think you got to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But for people that have made no efforts to go legit, I have no sympathy for that whatsoever. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. Like, maybe that's mean, but that's just how I feel about it. For the people that are at least have made an effort, it's still not good, but if they're at least making the effort and maintaining whatever relationship that requires, then I think that you got to let them off the hook. Contingent upon them continuing to stay on that path. And so long as they do, you got to leave them alone. That I think at least is fair. Everything else, nope. If you're not supposed to be here, then why are you here? I know that sounds mean, but like, there is a price we pay for that. So it would be good that if we didn't have that going on. So that's all. Ovachi is sold for 5, I guess.
Deportation goal. This undermines the sense of fairness and justice that the American people value. Again, that is the co-founder of Latinas for Trump, Ileana Garcia.
I understand where they're coming from.
So,
like if I was them, I would feel the same way.
Downtown Los Angeles, which has been the site of unrest for coming up on 72 hours now, and we have seen the National Guard of California.
I don't blame anybody for wanting to come here.
We see a fire crew.
I mean, self-preservation is what it's all about. But we can't have that going on, like, you know. Oh, is that the end of the stream? Maybe it was. Actually, it was. It just cut off right there. It's weird. Why? Like, that's the end of the VOD right there. What, did he just fall asleep? Shut off the stream?
For coming up on 72 hours now, and we have seen the
like
National Guard of California federalize 2,000 troops. We see a fire crew.
Yeah, weird. No, I don't want to do that. Well, I guess that's pretty much all that happened that day, I guess, or at least during the daytime. So I'll look at whatever happened yesterday later on today. But yeah, interesting. hopefully things have settled down a little bit. Like from what I was reading on Twitter, like it sounded like it was just the same going on. And then they brought in more National Guard and more like the Marines or something. Sometime yesterday. And God knows what's going on now. So we'll leave it there and hopefully we'll get caught up later on today. So we'll save and we'll probably come back to it probably tomorrow morning. And we'll see. But yeah, some craziness going on in LA apparently. What the hell are you going to do? They already had craziness going on. They just had those big fires a few months back. Damn. It's an unlucky place to live this year. No shit. I feel bad for him for that reason. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for playing. We'll see you next time.